Right, welcome to this week's edition of the Old Power Truth podcast. And today I am joined with former Royal Marine Commando, author, adventurer, and veterans mental health advocate, Chris Thrall. How you doing, Chris? All right?
Firing, mate. Thank you.
Good stuff. We got there eventually. We've had a few technical hitches, but...
Mate, Marines and paras and technology, it's just, you know what, nothing more needs to be said, does it?
No, true. I'm surprised the phone's not caught fire and I've not thrown it into the garden, because that did actually happen with my first laptop when I was trying to sort out editing for one of the episodes. So I've moved on from there, so that's good.
Yes.
But no, thank you very much for taking the time to come on. I really, really appreciate it. I kind of, like I do, hopefully, I think you mentioned you might have seen some of the concepts with the podcast I do. I just kind of get a bit of a background about you, where you grew up, kind of like what you were like at school, and then basically moving on to the career path you followed and joining the military and the Royal Marine Commando. So if you're good with that, over to you, Chris.
Boom. Yes. So, mate, I was sleeping in a Renault 12. I've been kicked out of home for the second time. This time I was 17. And my best mate at the time, his dad was the Sergeant Major of Lima Company in the Falklands. So they saw, a bit of action, and his dad was on the news coming back, and, he made this really sort of bravado, macho speech, and he was like, probably a bit like yourself, Chris. You had these characters, and they were in the elite forces. And anyway, so there I am. I'm sleeping in a Renault 12, and my mate comes up, knocks on the window. He goes, "Guess what? I've just passed a potential recruits course. I've just joined the Royal Marines." I'm like, he said, "Yeah, it was so hard." He said, "It's 3 days at Lympston Commando." He said, "They put us through all the tests. We had to do the endurance course, the assault course, running in boots, and then he says the fatal words, 'Of course, you couldn't do it, Chris.'" Yeah, don't ever say that to an angry young man who's sleeping in a Renault 12. And I'm like, I freaking could. So that was that. It was quick date. We went to his house. It was for New Year, and we were getting, pretty hammered as you did when you were 17, and well, as I did all my life, I should say. I left the party at midnight, and we had where we lived on Dartmoor. There was this massive rock that just stuck out of the nature. Don't ask me why. It was like a meteorite or something, right? And it was half a mile away. And I said to myself, right, if I can run up around that rock and back, that 1 mile, without stopping, that was the caveat. I'll go down to the recruiting office after the holiday and I'll sign on the dotted line, or at least I'll apply. And it almost killed me, Chris. I was hanging out. I was a smoker at 17 and everything. And I just remember everything in my body screamed, just give up. Give up. Why would the Marines want you? And this is kind of a little bit like how my family sort of were to me, Don't waste the Marines' time, Chris, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, but I knew, mate, if I gave up, I'd be giving up for the rest of my life. I knew that, Chris,
Yeah.
And I just dug deep, and there was something there inside me that just wouldn't let me give up. No matter, I know it's only a mile, but I was ball bagged, and when I made it back, I made it back to the village. I'm like, right, okay. So I went down to the recruiting office. It was quite funny. He said, right, hop up on the pull-up bar. So I hopped up on a pull-up bar and I'd done 19 pull-ups. Like all the gym stuff, you know, the calisthenics or whatever you call it, I was always sort of all right at that. It was swimming I was awful at, which is not good if you're joining the Marines. And running just used to kill me. So I'm up there and I'd done 19. He's like, right, get down. I thought, oh, fucking failed, haven't I? You know, I bet all the other lads do like 50 or something. I didn't realise most lads struggled to do like 3.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, 3, 6 or something. That was it, mate. I went up there for that PRC. Same thing again, doing that endurance. You do the endurance course, but you do it in light order, but wearing boots. And even that, you know, as a 17-year-old that wasn't particularly fit, it was hard, really hard. And as I remember falling back, and the other lads, we started off with sort of 15 or something. And by the time everyone dropped out or fell unconscious, one lad actually fell unconscious halfway up the 30-foot ropes, and he just dropped. And the corporal just like looks at him. Train station's that way, mate. Right. There's no sympathy or anything. Anyway, as I started to pull back from these guys, I think we started with 15. I think there was 8 of us left after this weekend. Or 6 of us, or something. I think there was 6 of us left. And as I'm dropping back up there, it's on Woodbury Common on Exmoor. This Marines PTI, obviously in the Marine, because they're all Marines in the Marines. He drops back, Chris, and he says, "You all right, fella?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm dying, Corporal." He says, "Yeah, but." He says, in the Marines, we're not looking for supermen. We're looking for guys just like you that don't give up. And that was it, you know. I hung in there. Next thing I know, they're calling us into this little room. Like I say, there were 6 of us. 2 lads went in, come out 5 minutes later, and they just foxtrot Oscar. They didn't say. We didn't realise they'd been told, don't say a word to the lads outside. So off they went. So you're standing there thinking, damn, these 2 lads, they've passed, obviously. We're the 4 failures, you know. Come out again. Corporal calls these 2 other lads in to see the colour sergeant. I'm like, right, they're the 2 lads. They've almost done well enough, but not quite. They call it a 6-month referral. They're gonna get invited back in 6 months. We're the 2 guys that have failed, you know. They come out, they disappear without saying anything. So, right, you 2 in the office. Says, right. And we got in there, and my heart is just like a stone, Chris. You know, it's the worst moment in my life because this was everything to me. I don't mean joining the military. I never even really thought about that until my mate bet me I couldn't do it. I mean, proving myself that I wasn't this failure, that I wasn't this homeless guy living in a Renault 12 whose family told him he was worthless, and you know, and all the nonsense that had obviously gone on all my childhood years. You know, it's just my ego was screaming, I've got to pass this, you know, I've got to pass this. And he says, right, pat yourselves on the back, gentlemen, you've just joined the Royal Marines. Mate, I still get emotional about that. That was, and I'm not trying to sell the military now because I don't really, it's like a long time ago for me, Chris, you know, my life's in a very different place now, but that has always been my most proudest moment, you know, prouder than getting my pilot's license, prouder than running the length of the UK non-stop, bar sleeping at the side of the road, prouder than running across the Sahara Desert in 52 degrees heat, you know, prouder than becoming that one there. That's English Veteran of the Year for inspiration. All of that don't really mean nothing, Chris, to me. But that moment at Lympstone, you know,
that's the start, though, isn't it? That was the start. So that's what kind of almost molded you. I see it as like, without that, I probably wouldn't be the person I am today. From them years, and I was similar to you, joined at 17. I've had this sort of chat with numerous people about it. It's hard when you're 17 because your body's not developed. You're not fully developed at 17, so it is hard. I used to see guys in their 20s that were men that were kind of finding it not easy because sort of the Commando course, P company, the training for the paras. I think they're very, very similar training aspects. They're meant to be difficult. They're meant to form elite soldiers, so they are difficult. But at 17, it's hard. But that's where it began, isn't it? That's what shaped you and molded you and gave you that mindset. As the motto goes, it's a state of mind, or one of the the things they say about the Marines. So it is, and that's going to shape and mold you for the future. And that's exactly what it did. So it should be one of the proudest moments of your life. I see me getting my maroon machine as one of the proudest moments of my life as well.
Yes, it's just funny. I mean, most people say when they have their first kids born. No disrespect to my little legend, he is an absolute, he's just such a little diamond, my boy. But I'll be honest, I don't know if it's because we had him late in life, but it was a bit like, all right, move on. Sorry, H.
It's different. I've always argued it's different for kind of male and females. I believe when you have kids, it's different emotionally to that of a female. She's carried that child. She then gave birth to that child. Whereas a guy, you're kind of you just there. You are that parent, but I think the bond between father and child and mother and child is very, very different. Whereas blokes are just a bit like, well, again, it's one of the proudest moments of my life. But I think you're a bit like, well, it is what it is, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess for some, maybe I don't know. Maybe for some fathers, having their kid is. Oh, sorry, I was breaking up then. For some fathers, having their first child, maybe that's their moment in life. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah,
for me, I've just done so much other stuff over the years before then that I don't know. Maybe it watered it down a bit. It's a bit of a. I never really thought about it.
I do see where you're coming from. I mean, he's up there on par with bits and bobs, but it's a different experience, isn't it? And like you say, maybe I had my sort of children. I had a child when I was very, very young, and then I had my two other children when I was kind of like late 20. All very different experiences, but I can understand coming from your perspective. If you have kids later down the line, it probably will be a different experience because you've already got that life behind you to start with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. So yeah, okay. So right, you've passed the initial part. You've then turned up, rocked up, day one, week one, wet behind the ears, ready to start. How much of a shock to the system was that?
Mate, for me, it was like coming home. One of my favourite films. Me and my mate used to watch this. Was Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah.
The bit where he's getting beasted by the drill sergeant on what we call the bottom field, and he says, "I've got nowhere else to go." And in that moment, he's got nowhere else to go. He has to pass this, That was me, Chris. I never, not even for 1 second, not even for a nanosecond, in any of that 8 months, did I even consider go leaving. Was not. Did I get homesick? No. It was every day. look at that little white piece of A4 paper they stuck on the board telling us what we were doing today. I think they put the week up there. I never really looked at I just looked at today. Thought, right, yeah, I can do all that. Oh, that's going to be a bit of a bloody toughie, but I'll, And yeah, there was the thing the Marines are great at, and it must be the same in the paras, is making you think you're going to fail all the time. Making you think you're the weak link. Come on, Thrall, and you're like, oh, bloody hell, they're going to bin me tomorrow. But yeah, mate, I got through it. A couple of nemesises. The swimming is a tough one. That when you're, I got very little body fat, still haven't really. Whereas the bigger lads, you have to jump off the top diving board with essentially your fatigues. Can't even remember what we call them. Your like a combat jacket and denims, and a fighting order, and an old Lee Enfield rifle, and you got to jump off, and you got these 2 bricks in your ammo pouches, and as soon as you hit the water, you just go down. You go down. I don't know. It feels like 20 feet, but it's probably like 6 feet or something. When you try and swim up, you've never experienced that before because you've never had that much weight, and you swim and you're not going anywhere. And then finally you break the surface. You got to swim down a pool, swim back again, tread water, not allowed to touch the side at any time, other that's instant failure. Then while you're treading water, you've got to hand your weapon up to the lad on the side. Then you've got to unclip your fighting order, then you've got to get one shoulder out of it. I tell you what, it's harder than it sounds, mate. I failed it twice, and I wasn't used to failing stuff. I passed I passed everything first time in the Marines except that test. It took me 30 weeks to pass that. And the endurance course. And I'll tell you why the endurance course was hard. It was because when I was speed marching, even though I was crap at it, really found running so hard, I wouldn't give up because you're with your section, aren't you? Or you're with your troop. You can't let them down. I'm not trying to sound bravado. I just wouldn't have been wanted. I just couldn't drop out. Lads did. Not a lot, but there was always a couple that you knew that they were going to get in the rat wagon. And it was questionable whether they were going to pass their commando test because they always got in the rat wagon. I think they did, actually. But the difference with the endurance course, and for friends out there that are not familiar with it, is, first of all, it's a 4-mile march in full equipment up to the start of the course on Woodbury Common. Then in your freeze, you leg it 2 miles of this semi-submerged, waterlogged course. So you're running up hills like that, down like that, through the Peters Pool where you got to have your weapon above your head. We did it in February. It was -7. So the first lads that go through, they got to break the ice, And then when you come out that pool, you literally weigh double. Your kit's holding the water. You got water in your boots. I say double. It feels like you weigh double. And then you got to do all these submerged tunnels, and there could be anything in them tunnels. In the summer, they get snakes crawling in there, allegedly. But they're about that big. They're just enough to crawl through with your fighting order. And they've got a river running through them or a stream. So you're breathing at some parts of it like that. It's like Rambo First Blood. Anyway, after that, if that isn't knackering enough, you do that 2 miles and then you got to run 4 miles back to camp on your own. It's just your timed, And when you get back to the camp, you then got to get 6 out of 10 shots on the target in the rifle range to show that you've kept your weapon clean enough. And it was that moment was a bit like the one I told you about before, is I just wanted to walk. I just wanted to give up. Everything in me was just like, Marines ain't for you, mate. You know, this is your moment to drop out. You know, this clearly not for you. I was just exhausted. You remember you'd done 30 weeks of training at this point. 30 weeks of, 5.5 hours sleep. If you're lucky, getting up, your body's just wrecked, as I know you guys know. You're physically drained of nutrients and vitamins and everything. You got this week crammed full of tests that most people could never pass anyway. You've got to do them all back to back after 30 weeks of exhaustion. And I went to put a foot forward to walk. My mate, incidentally, Matty, at this point, would walk over to the tree and he'd tuck his Bensons into a branch of the tree with a lighter. And he'd spark up a ciggy, smoke his ciggy, and then he'd run back to camp. But now I just thought, if I start walking, that's it. That's going to be the death knell, you know. So I just started putting one foot in front of the other, Chris, you know, just... And then I realised I was getting a little rhythm going. And that rhythm become a bit faster. And even though I was the last person in my section, all of that threesome, off the course, I knew if I could keep this pace up, and I was starting to run really fast, and if I could just keep this pace, then that's it. I'm going to pass out, get me green lid, everything. And that was it. And when I hit the rifle range, remember the troop boss, we're still mates to this day. He looked at me and went, "Fucking hell, Thrall, did you start off with Cowan?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." He said, "Oh." And he realised that someone who'd never passed this before had now passed it, you know. So anyway, that was that, mate. Got to my unit and I put in for 4-2 Commando, which is based just outside of Plymouth. And I put in for them because they were going to Northern Ireland. And I thought, if I'm going to serve in the Marines, I want to, see some combat, so do some active service, So I put in for 4-2, knowing that they were going to go to Belfast. And that's what we did. Did all the build-up at Lyddon Hive, as it was back in the day. Did the 2-2 conversion on the SA-80, so you can patrol around the village and, hopefully if you do hit someone, you don't hurt them too badly. And then we got out to Belfast, and we were called, my little group, we were called a Commando Reserve, because we were made up of a lot of lads just out of training. And we were attached to M Company to start off with, and it was just mad. I'll never forget that pepper potting out the gate at dawn. The sun was just coming up over Belfast. It was one of the hottest summers on record. It had to be. It's like you got all that gear on and you just sweat. It's just amazing what the human body can do. I can't imagine what it must have been like in Afghanistan, but I sort of can. That was it. I remember bomb bursting out of that front gate, pepper potting, then breaking into patrol pattern, and thinking, "Fuck, this is it." This really this is everything what we train for. And well, then nothing happened for a week, and it's tempting then to get lackadaisical, isn't it? When nothing's going bang and no rounds are coming in. I was thinking, is this a load of shit? Is all that training we done? Is it just like, just to be on the safe side? How wrong was I, mate? How wrong was I? We got attached to Lima Company, and they were at a place called Girdwood Park, and this is about a week later. We ran out the front gate as the IRA blew up the Sanger on the back gate. Well, it's actually on the New Lodge Road. It was like, I think it was a road down from the back gate. So as we ran out, you hear this massive boom. The ground's trembling under your feet. You don't know where that IED or whatever the hell it is has gone off. And just straight into drills. Make ready. Take cover. We're listening to the Brit commander like, what's going on? Mate, what's going on? What's going on? Don't know. Oh, breaking up a bit there, you know. And we got the order to go back into the barracks. So our very first patrol out of this patrol base, and we had a contact. And we went in, got debriefed, then we all got geared up to go out again. And same thing again, burst out the front gate. We're heading up to the Ardougne, which, as anyone knows Belfast will know, is a traditional Republican stronghold. Absolutely hate the Brits, absolutely hate the military, definitely hate the Marines, and probably hate the Paras a wee bit more than that. And we got up there and we had a conco attached to us, a continuity officer, because we'd only been there like a week or something. And the continuity officer stays over from the regiment before you to show you the ground, you know. And we got to this little park. He said, right, fellas, break into diamond formation. We'll go across the grass because this little alleyway this pathway is renowned for IEDs. So that was it. We broke into diamond formation. I got Jock, our tail end Charlie, just behind me. And no sooner had Jock stepped foot on the grass, then suddenly it's just bang, bang, ba-bang, bang, bang, ba-bang, bang, bang. These high velocity rounds going off. And all I could hear was Clive, our Brit commander, take cover, take fucking cover. And you could hear the cocking mechanism, the sound of the cocking mechanisms ricocheting off all the walls around this park. And as I start to run, the ground at my feet is going pew, pew, just like the old cowboy movies. And we took cover behind this like outbuilding. And when I look back, Jock was just spark out on the ground. And he wasn't just spark out. Mate, am I really pausing on your camera?
No, not so.
For some reason I'm really freezing. But so I was the first aider of the Brit. So I'm looking back, Jock spark out on his front. He's got his electronic equipment as like 5 meters over there. His rifle is over there. And I just thought, he's been taken out. And I'm the first aider, so I better go and grab him. So I started to run back. And the Brit shouting at me, Chris, get down. Get down. And I'm like, how can I do that? You know? And as I started to run back, Jock puts his head up like that, and I could just see his eyes were just huge, you know? And he grabs his rifle, grabs his electronic equipment, just comes running over, collapses. He's like, I'm hit. So I'm ripping open his parasmock, ripping open his Iniba jacket, you know, his flak jacket. And I'm like, Jock, you're not in it, mate. You're not. He's like, I am. I'm hit. So by this time, the Clive's got on the radio and he's gone, you know, I don't know what we were like, November 50 Bravo or something. He's like, November 50 Bravo, contact, wait out. No, contact, casualties, wait out. then I'm going, "You're not it, Jock. You're not it." And Clive's like, 0, it's November 50 Bravo, no casualties, wait out. And Jock's like, "I'm here. I'm here." Clive's back on the radio, November 50 Bravo, casualty, wait out. Right? And I remember 0 clearly he could hear the OC's voice going, "Corporal so-and-so, what is it? Have you got casualty or not?" And turns out that they actually used to remember the guy. In fact, yeah, I can remember the guy's name, the player. That's the IRA chap for people who are not familiar with the lingo. They done a house takeover during the day, so quote unquote kidnap the occupants, who probably said, "Paddy, do you want to come in and have a cup of tea? And we've set up the firing point for you upstairs." But they had to say that they were, taken hostage. And what he'd done, it wasn't even a sniper rifle or anything. It was an AK. And he'd opened up on us from the back of the Ardoyne. We must have been, I don't quote me on this, folks, but let's just say 50 metres away, maybe 75, I don't know. And the first round had taken the antenna off his electric equipment. I'm not on purposely not saying those 3 letters because of the Official Secrets Act, and they'll cut my balls off and send me to Devil's Island or something. The second round had gone through the sling on his SE-80. And bear in mind, he's tail end Charlie, so he's facing backwards, obviously. The third round had just hit his Aniba jacket. Hadn't even hit the fiberglass plate. It just hit the jacket above the plate. Enough to spin him around. That's why his equipment had flown off. It spun him around that fast. His equipment had flown off. It left the bruise that come up the next day was like, I've still got a photo of it. It was like that big. And then, of course, after them 3 rounds, I was the next guy along, wasn't I? That's why the ground, he'd obviously taken Jock out, or thought he'd taken Jock out, and then turned his sights on me. But luckily, by that stage, we were running as fast as we could. So that was that, and then we had quite a lot of incidents on that tour. One day there was 171 high-profile incidents. That's like stabbings, kneecappings, shootings, snipings, buses hijacked, IEDs, mortar bomb, a riot, the whole works. It was quite a like, a bit of a packed tour, that one. But the sad thing was, Chris, after in our second, it was only about 2 weeks into the tour. It might have been 3. I was on the main gate and I was chatting to, I think it was Simo in the top Sanger, and a patrol came up and they split in half. Half the patrol went out the back gate, half come out the front gate. I let the patrol out the front gate, shut the gate, went back. I'm yapping to Simo, and suddenly you could just hear 18 rounds going off just down the street. 18 rounds in Belfast, that's a lot of that's a lot of rounds. You might get the odd 1 or 2 or an explosion, but 80, it's like the gunfight at the OK Corral or something. And comes over the radio. It was something along the lines of contact. Car has driven past the patrol and fired 2 shots. The lads have returned 18 rounds. It was something like that. Anyway, in that process, one of our chaps got, I don't want to say it on your podcast, mate, because I should probably give a warning, but yeah, he got dead. And that was, that's your wake up call, isn't it? You know, that's when life, you know, gets real. All that stuff about is anything ever going to happen? that just seems like a long way away. And you know, one of the lads tried to give him chest compressions, but by that time, I think he just lost an awful lot of blood, and he just went like that, apparently. And the next day, Chris, we got fell in by the OC, and he just, right, fellas, we've had an incident. You know, you've all reacted with aggression in a potentially, you know, dangerous situation. So well done, men. Let's just gear up and let's get back out. And that was it. I remember thinking, I'm a very different person now, Chris, when it comes to like killing and conflict and all that stuff. But I think I was 19 at that point. You know, that was a proud day to be a Marine. I don't mean losing someone, obviously. I mean the fact we all just got our kit on and went back out that gate again and did our jobs, you know. Yeah, I do remember thinking those two things. Wow, this is my job, you know. There by the grace of God, and yeah, let's go and do it, you know.
It's a very strange one, that, and you know, to people that kind of don't go in the military until to probably a lot of civilians that may watch this. It's a difficult one, is it? Because you join the military, and again, I've said this numerous times, but you join the military, certainly the Marines and the Paras and the infantry units, to go and want to be in combat. You want to see it, you want to experience, you want to taste it, you want to be, you train for it. That's what you want to do. And then you get there, and then, like you say, the reality hits home. And some people still like the adrenaline buzz of it. I think that might be the kind of part of youth, like you say, being 19. You're fearless as a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old. You know, certainly for me, up until probably the early 30s, I considered myself fearless in the employments I did. I used to thrive off the going out on the ground in Iraq and getting contacted and stuff like that. I used to love it. But, you know, looking back at it now, probably from yourself saying like you're a different person, you know, I couldn't imagine doing that sort of stuff now. I mean, my job I do now can be dangerous, obviously, but it's different. And I just can't look back. I do look back at it and think, yeah, different person. But as far as being sort of like you're saying about being proud, it is. You've done your job. You've executed it perfectly. You've done it as you should. Sadly, you've lost an individual. It's part of the casualties of war, and that's unfortunately what happens. But then you've gone back, collected yourself, gone out and cracked on and done your job again. And that's what we're all about. That's what the Marines are about. That's what the Paras are about. That's what every unit in the British Army is about. You know, you go out there, if you lose someone on an operational tour or in an incident, you pick yourself up, you give each other a bit of banter, and then you go crack on and do it again, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I mean, yeah, like I feel the need to say this just for the youngsters that might watch this podcast. You know, I was from a very damaged, broken home. I experienced stuff as a toddler that no kid should really go through. And as a result, I was a very broken adult. And I thought I needed to join the Marines and go and kill other teenagers because that would make me a man. That's what I believed. And, you know, it's... I think conflict should be avoided at all costs, but I don't think that's the situation we've got, Chris. I don't know your thoughts on it. I think conflict's constructed. I think that these, you know, aristocratic banking families and huge corporations. I think they purposely conspire to fuel the, both sides in a conflict, to keep it going as long as they can, so they can sell all the bombs, the bullets, the guns, the quote unquote reconstruction. They're betting on both sides with their money, so they're playing the stock market as the conflict unfolds. And I just feel the need to say that to youngsters listening, because I've done hundreds of podcasts now. That's on my channel, bought the t-shirt. And what I realised is people don't want to know about flying aeroplanes, which to me is the most fascinating thing in life. Skydiving, absolutely brilliant. Everyone should do it. Rowing an ocean, I'm doing this year, rowing across the Atlantic. Like I say, ran across the Sahara last year in Marathon des Sables, second toughest year on record. It's 52 degrees heat. I love to chat with youngsters about that. But lo and behold, it was talking about my time at Lympstone, 30 years, that people responded to. So then I felt the need to say, listen, to the youngsters, that if you think you're joining the military for freedom and democracy, I'd go and have a word with yourself, or do a bit of research on the internet, because these psychopaths, they don't care about the body bags coming back. When you come back broken from a war and you've got your legs missing and you've lost an eye or whatever, if you're lucky enough to come back, you got to go and beg then to charities to look after you. Government won't look after you. They will discharge their responsibility as soon as they can. We're trying to raise money for Scotty's little soldiers when we row the Atlantic. And one of the wonderful women that I've met through doing this, her husband was a colonel. He was like a 27-year veteran of the army. He did 6 tours of Afghanistan and then died of brain cancer, which they think was to do with the depleted uranium or whatever the hell else, was being thrown around over there. Within like 2 weeks of his death, they get a letter through saying, you've got to vacate your married quarter. You're no longer in the military. Your husband's dead. This is a 27-year colonel. This woman's got 2 very young daughters, all in school, and and hence the fact they have to leave and go to an organisation like Scotty's Little Soldiers, which is the only source of support for these kids. There's no official government, don't have a body to look after service kids that have lost a parent. And the other thing they don't talk about, Chris, is 40% of these military deaths, that's suicide. That's not in theatre. It's suicide. It's people like me, very damaged young men, joining up, not going through the process of healing the trauma that you've had from 1 year old, 2 years old, deeply ingrained trauma. You leave the military, and then suddenly you're in a place called Civvy Street where everything's a bit weird. People are a bit fucking knobheads and they're all backstabbing bastards that don't, you can't just go and punch someone if you disagree with them like you did in the mob, because they call the police on you and all this weird stuff. And then on top of that, you got these bills through. You got to pay these things called bills, and you got to have a job to pay that, but you can't get the job because every time you go for an interview, they're like, "Who are you then?" "Oh, I'm an ex-Marine." "Oh, what's that then? Is that like the army? Is it?" Oh, and clearly all that stuff, all that kudos you thought you had in Civvy Street, that matters nothing. They're like, "What can you do?" I can fire an SA-80 blindfold. Nah, we ain't got much need for that stacking the shelves in Tesco's. "Oh, I can put a first field dressing on a casualty, sucking chest wound. Make sure you get both the holes." Nah, you ain't got no need for that, driving a white van or whatever. So you can't, you can't even get like the basics of jobs. I'm generalizing here, or I'm using possibly an extreme example, and what's happening is a lot of the lads and lasses, they're not making it through. They start the drinking to self-medicate the fact that Civvy Street's a weird place. The alcohol makes it temporarily better, but then you wake up the next day and you've dug a little bit more of a hole for yourself. And then suddenly the missus is like, look, darling, we can't stand it. You know, I can't let the kids watch you do this. We're off to grandma's. So your missus has left you and you're not seeing the kids. Then you're on your own in a bed sit, drinking. And of course, we all know where it ends up, you know. So my experience at Chris was I went out to Hong Kong after Northern Ireland. I had a very good short career in the Marine. I did 7 years, and in that time I did an operational tour. I then did Arctic warfare training up in the north of Norway, which is a very tough experience at the time, but looking back it was just so incredible. And then I was lucky, I spent a year and 2 months or something on an aircraft carrier. There was one of 12 Marines on there. We got treated like gold dust by the crew. We only had to work when we were alongside, because our job was to, can we say, protect a certain weapon system. So when we're at sea, we literally, it was like we were on a cruise. We had nothing to do. We used to volunteer to help the buffer, who's the guy that tells you what to paint and all that stuff. I was ship's DJ for a couple of nights. It was just brilliant. We sailed to Barbados. We sailed all around the Med. We had a week in Egypt just getting slaughtered and you know, riding camels up to the pyramids and stuff. And after that, I settled down in a stable base in Plymouth, the headquarters, and I just did guard duty for 3 or 4 years. And that allowed me to buy a house then. So at that point, I started a business which really took off in Hong Kong. And so I was that stereotypical serviceman that's wanted to go outside but kind of didn't want to because, you know, what the hell's out there. And I got something out there. I got a business in Hong Kong, and it was, even though it ended up failing miserably, when I was in the Marines, we turned over £100,000 one month. $100,000, sorry, US dollars. And my bonus check for that month was 2,568 quid. And you got to remember, this is 35 years ago. That'd be equivalent of probably getting like $8,000 a month now or something. Plus, I was getting my Marine salary, so I just couldn't wait to get out and go to Hong Kong and run this business. Within 7 months, my demons had caught up with me. The business had crashed, which genuinely wasn't my fault, but it had. I'm stuck in Hong Kong taking all these weird odd jobs. Ended up being the doorman on a club in Wan Chai, which is like the red light district, the girly bar district, the gangland district in Hong Kong, nightclub district. I was the doorman on a club run by the 14K, who are the triad brotherhood who run Wan Chai. And, you know, in Asia, you have a businessman owns the club, but if he wants to do business, he's got let the triads cut, you know, the organised crime come in and run it all for him. Probably a bit like Soho in London, right? So this club I worked in was run by the 14K. And as if that wasn't like a bit of a mad place to be, by this time I was phasing in and out of psychosis, so chronic mental illness from chronic crystal meth addiction. Yeah, things got a bit interesting.
No, I bet they did. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I could tell you some stuff about it, but it just is what it just was what it was. I just stress, Chris, I was just a doorman, like you'd be a doorman in this kind of, I wasn't a triad. I've never claimed to be a triad. A lot of people, when they see my book, I think some people don't read the book and then they make this automatic assumption that this is about an ex-Marine that become a triad, and it's not. This is about an ex-Marine that realised he was just human and fallible, whose childhood demons caught up with him, and he ended up in a shitty mess. Literally, I became the person that you cross the street to avoid. Right. I was massively in psychosis. I thought everything was this huge conspiracy. I thought the whole of Hong Kong was a pinball machine. And I phased in and out of that mindset for 7 months. And during that 7 months of phasing in and out of clinical psychosis, I'm working for a psychopathic criminal gang as their club doorman. It was a bit crazy. My first night in that club, I just thought it was my third job as a doorman over there. The difference was the first two clubs were run by Europeans. They were run by Scottish families, actually, which I think goes back to the trading days in Hong Kong, where you had the big Scottish traders would trade out of Hong Kong. I don't know if that's why, but both these clubs I worked in, one was called Rick's Cafe, one was called Joe Bananas. They were both run by Scottish, and as progressively I got iller and iller, I kept losing all these jobs. And in my first night in this triad run club, I had no idea, mate. I just thought, I'm just another doorman in another club. This run's run by Chinese people, But there was an English chap sat at the bar. He'd gone over there to build the new airport. And I don't know why. He seemed to know who I was, and I obviously didn't have a clue who he was. And he said, "You know they're all triads, Chris, don't you?" My ears prick up, because if you think about it, I come from one gang, haven't I? And I've just, now found myself in another one. I've come from one gang that likes fighting and fighting well, covered in tattoos, with a brotherhood and a secret uniform. I don't mean like our green uniform. I mean our civvy uniform, desert boots, unit t-shirt or whatever, and faded jeans. I'm now found myself in another gang that likes fighting, wears this secret uniform and are covered in tattoos. So it was kind of like I felt like I'd come home, mate, because again I was homeless before that. So I'm homeless for the third time in my life. And it was weird. It was a weird one. There was a guy over there, I won't say his name, but I think he was either from Pompey or London. And he used to sell pills, and he was fearless. He was the doorman for the triad family that ran the mainland or the Kowloon Peninsula, certainly Kowloon. I think they were the Sunny On. Mine were the 14K. I think it was Sunny On that run Kowloon, but it was a long time ago. He was on the steps of his club one night, and a transit van pulls up. 8 or so triads pile out the back, all with the meat cleavers, and they just set about chopping him up, Chris, And where he put his hand up to protect himself, he chopped his thumb, and it was hanging down the side of his wrist. By the time I met him, which was after this, he had a face like he'd run into a tennis net at speed. It's all crisscrossed, And the mad thing was, it turned out to be a case of mistaken identity, They just thought, oh, Guilo is what they call foreigners. They thought, oh, Guilo, him. And it turned out they were taking out their revenge on the wrong bloke. And even crazier than that, this idiot, he's back working on the door 3 days later with his face all bandaged up and his hands strapped up. So what I'm trying to say is when it did kick off, it did, there was potential over there was to kick off. But as far as I'm concerned, it was just sad, mate. There's no bravado here or nothing. It's sad. A lot of these triads, they're like sociopaths. They come from like sink estates in Hong Kong. They got like two choices in life: either go and work in an office, sit behind a computer 12 hours a day, just to go home to a shit skyscraper and watch shit Cantonese TV, or they can join a criminal gang and get the kudos. And again, it's healing that, not healing, it's feeding that ego in it, that ego from the childhood trauma. Because this lot, Christ knows what some horrible shit goes on in Hong Kong, mate. Horrible stuff. So, yeah, you work with these guys, mate, and they were just mental. When a scrap would kick off, you could literally see in their face, they go like this. They start rocking back and forward, and that was like the frustration of they haven't been able to pick up anything quick enough. They'd be like, and they pick up anything, mate. You wouldn't have a tape measure in a nightclub, but they pick up the ice tongs from the ice bucket. They pick up an ashtray, and they just, wherever they were, if they're behind the bar, they just dive across the bar and they just come steaming in. And they would batter someone so hard and so fast. You never seen, just pure hate. Pure, like, you've messed with our gang, and nobody does that. It was mental. But I eventually got fired from that job. I just was too unwell, mate. I was just too unwell. But it culminated for me, really, with one night I was off my head, deep in psychosis. And I was living on the top floor flat of this tenement building. So like a mini skyscraper. And I used to go up on the roof and fuck around doing kung fu. It used to just be my thing, I'd go up on the roof. You could see the whole of the territory. You could see the harbour with all the cargo ships in. You could see the mountains behind. You could see all the other skyscrapers. I know I used to just go up there and I had this kung fu book. I used to teach myself bits of kung fu. And one thing I'd noticed up there is there was a water pipe, like a hose pipe, going from my building to the building on the opposite side of Jaffe Road. And it was plasticuffed to a wire, obviously, to stop it like stretching. And it was plasticuffed at every sort of 12 inches or something. I don't know what it was for. There's a lot of homeless, the homeless population in Hong Kong, they live on top of the skyscrapers. So it's a funny thing, they live on top of the skyscraper. I don't know if it was to like something to do with that. But anyway, I was so ill, Chris. I thought my whole Marines training had primed me for this moment where I had to crawl across that cable to the skyscraper on the opposite side of the road, like 70 meters above the ground or something like that, And I started crawling out across it, and I'm thinking, that's what my commando training is for. It's for this moment. When I get to the other side, I'm going to get all my answers in life. I'm going to find out what all this is about. It's like everyone I've ever met, ever, in my whole life, all like my training team, my school teachers, all the people I've worked in the nightclubs, even the ones that fired me, they're all going to be over there, and they're all going to be like, well done, Chris, well done, That's how damaged I was as a person. It's all like coming out through this psychosis, It's that deep down, I thought I needed acceptance. That's what this was all, and this is a manifestation of it. In the depths of my illness, if I can cross this road, if I can prove myself to all these people that have doubted me, then it's all going to come good, it's all going to come good, And I got like a few feet out on this cable, and it's like swaying, just like the rope used to do on a commando course, And I got my leg dangling like we was taught, and I'm swaying and I'm looking down. The people are just like ants. The cars are like little matchbox cars on the street, and then I'm thinking, hang on a sec, who put this here? Like, I don't know who built this, do I? I'm just like trusting my weight to it. It's not like in the Marines where everything was tested and then tested again, and put up by professionals who make sure they knew everyone's life depended on that this rig, that it worked. I'm thinking this could be some cowboy Hong Kong builder, and next thing I'm just gonna like plummet to my death. And I thought, and what will happen is they'll tell my family back home that I'd become a drug addict in Hong Kong and I'd thrown myself off a rooftop. And I wouldn't have done that, Chris, because deep down, I still believed in me, Absolutely, beneath all this, getting sacked from every job, being threatened by the triads, falling out with everyone, losing like 3 stone in weight, people laughing at me in the street, half my possessions got stolen, got this chronic drug habit, and I'm phasing in and out of this weird stuff that I didn't know what it was, because when you're in psychosis, you don't know, you think you're normal, but on top of all that, I still had my back, I still believed in myself, and I couldn't have my family being told that. And then I thought about my little brother, and all that shit we went through growing up. One school, we had to go 300 miles away to Lincolnshire when another one of my parents' separations, or my parents separated and remarried like 5 times,
Wow.
I went to, including nursery school, I went to 6 schools before I was 11. 6 school. That's one every, that's one new set of bullies to fight. That's, new set of teachers like shouting at you and not understanding what you've got going on at home, and that your dad is 300 miles away and you miss him like terribly, and you think you're never going to see him again, and just madness, and in this one school they had this rule that the little kids couldn't be in the playground with the big kids, so the playgrounds were separate. They were separated by these steps, like six concrete steps, and like, so my brother, who was in a very, very junior year, he'd come and sit on one step, and I'd sit on the step above him, and it just wouldn't be so lonely and horrible, just being with my kid brother. And I'm thinking about, I'm on this bloody cable in Hong Kong, and I'm thinking about my little brother, the kid I loved the most in the whole world, most important person in my life. And I think, fucking hell, I haven't phoned him for a year. I haven't spoke to him for like 8 or 9 months or something. I've been so absorbed by this addiction and this drug and everything going on. I haven't even I haven't spoke to him. And yet I love him more than anyone else on the planet. And I thought, and in that moment, I just start crying. And the tears are like dropping. They're dropping down like into the void. Like it looked like paratroopers from the Herc, These tears just dropping down, and I fucking got off that cable and I went back to my room, which was a shithole as it was, but by the time I got back, I was angry now, I was angry. What was I doing? Who was I? Why was I trying to prove anything to anyone? I don't prove myself to no one. I don't have to prove myself to no one. I was a Royal Marines Commando. What am I doing? Like fucking civvies laughing at me. I don't give a shit. Fuck them, And with that, I just smashed up my apartment. Even this beautiful little ornate ivory box, or it was like mother of pearl box that I bought that I really loved, It was just little like a coffee table thing, that I fucking smashed that fucking thing against the wall, And I just sink down and just crying uncontrollable, just crying. What was I thinking? What was I doing? Who was I trying to prove myself? At that moment the door knocks. So I open the door, fucking police. Again, right? This lone policeman stood there. One of the neighbours had obviously reported the disturbance, and he's like, what you do? What you do again? Say, in one chai, everyone know you. Everyone know you take the drug. Don't take the drug. And with that, he just about turned, mate, and fucked up. And then I just cried a bit more, Yeah. Cut a long story short, Chris, but is the get to the crux of the matter out there. 18 months back in the UK, I was in shit state. I was in just fortunately the psychosis went, but I still had a chronic habit. I was chronically depressed, but I didn't know what depression was. No one had actually told me, Chris, you're depressed, mate. You're depressed, and that shit isn't helping you. No one, and so I fucking bashed it out, mate, for fucking another 18 months. And then one day, by the time I'd had nervous breakdown, like this was like number 3 now, thinking, what have you done? And the light shone through the window. And in that moment, I thought, I'm going to start looking after you, Chrissy. That little boy that suffered all that abuse, like, he's a man now. And he needs you to take care of him. But what are you doing? You're bloody sticking gear in him 12 times a day. And in that moment, it just come to me, Chris. It was literally the light shone through the blind into this dark room. I'd woken up shivering, starving, because I wouldn't eat or sleep for anything up to 9 days. That's how addicted I was to the drug. I didn't, I woke up this one time and I just shivering, starving, and I've fallen asleep on the floor. And like I say, I had this nervous breakdown. Couldn't go out. I was too ashamed to go out the front door. The state of me, I was too ashamed to go out. I was starving, hungry. I just wanted to go and get a pie from the shop, but I was too ashamed. And again, massive nervous breakdown again. And as I come out of it, I just seen the light, mate. I literally, the light come in my life, and I thought, right, okay. I'm going to start looking after that little kid called Chris, because I've only got myself to blame. I can't blame other people. The past is the past. What's done is done. It don't matter. It's just experience. Use it as experience. And I said, I'm never going to play the victim card again. Don't matter what's happened to me in this life. It's all for a reason. It's all education. It's all to make me a better person. And I should be grateful for the tough times, grateful for the hard times. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to do to life. I ain't letting life do to me. Fucking no way. I'm doing to life. And every morning when I wake up, I'm going to throw them curtains out open. Instead of hiding behind them, shivering, I'm going to throw them open. I'm going to say, morning, son. Thank you so much for another day on this beautiful planet. Because that lad that we lost in Belfast, all the lads I knew that had committed suicide or been killed on their motorbikes, One of my friends fell off a horse. I knew a lot of people that were dead, and they couldn't be here, could they, to experience this? And what was I doing? I was squandering it. I was taking a piss. I was taking a liberty. I had life. I had a brilliant life if I just chose it. And yet what was I doing? I was killing myself slowly. And that was it, mate. That next morning I woke up and something was just different in my life, Chris. It was different. I felt different. I think the Bible would probably call it the Holy Spirit or something, right? And I'm not getting religious on you. I'm just saying I knew my life was never going to be the same again. So I went into action, mate. I travelled 85 countries across all 7 continents. I backpacked for every single country in North, Central, South America. I taught street children in Mozambique, in post-war Mozambique. I drove a bus full of volunteers to India and back from Norway so we could write articles about communities that live in poverty. I dived in all the beautiful locations all around the world, including the Barrier Reef. I expeditioned to the Antarctic polar circle to dive with leopard seals and icebergs. I wrote 6 best-selling books, or at least my first book was an international bestseller. I ran the length of the UK to raise awareness of the veteran suicide problem. I ran an ultra marathon every day carrying a 15-kilogram Bergen, sleeping at the side of the road for 36 days. Raised some money for the Batten Foundation, who support veterans. I come last in my first ever triathlon, really last. My little boy was at the finish line going, "Where's my daddy? My daddy should be here now," right? I come last, one of my proudest moments actually. And I said, right, in 8 weeks' time, I'm going to do a quadruple Ironman. So 4 Ironmen back to back. And amazing what you can do when you put your mind to it, friends. So I did a quadruple Ironman. I swam 9 miles. I cycled 450. And then I came up your way, Chris, to Sherwood Forest to do the 100-miler. Went the wrong way. Had to run another 8 miles. So I had to run another 8 miles on top of a quadruple Ironman. That's
not what you want, is it?
Yeah, that's your Marines navigating for you. I started a podcast that's been really popular. I ran across the Sahara, like I said to you last summer in the Marathon des Sables for charity. This year I'm going to row across the Atlantic with a couple of lads to raise money for Scotty's Little Soldiers and also for homeless veterans. There's probably a lot of stuff, mate, I'm forgetting, but the whole point is, to anyone out there who's struggling, who's suffering, pick your moment and then fucking leave the past behind, because it doesn't exist. Don't matter what you did in it, whatever, it does not exist. And if you cling to it as your identity, which veterans are terrible at doing, you're just clinging on to all that trauma and wondering why you don't go forward. I'm not saying you shouldn't be proud of, we shouldn't be proud of our service, keep relationships like this going. No, I don't mean that. I mean that, your identity lies in who you are in this moment in life, doesn't it? And what you do and what you put out, what your relationships are like with people, how good are you as a human. That's how you judge a person. You don't judge them by what colour hat they wore when they was 18 years old, And if you leave the past behind, because it doesn't exist, it physically doesn't exist. People think it exists. Well, go to the guard room when you was 19 and make me a cup, you guys call it a brew, we call it a wet. Go and make me a brew. You ain't going to be able to do it because it don't exist. And the future doesn't exist either, so stop worrying about it. You got to fight, you got to do what I did. In that moment, I made my niche in life. I said, do you know what? I'm going to be grateful that I'm just here. That's it. Even if I go Tesco and have a cup of tea, I'm going to love it. It's my life. And I'm not shoving needles in my arm, and I'm not hurting anyone, and I'm not stealing, and I'm not working for the Hong Kong triad. It's my life, and I'm going to love it because this is my. And if you do that, leave the victim card in the past. It's it's an amazing life, Chris. You know.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you decided to grab life by the horns and kind of move forward. And it is, I think people are guilty of kind of living in the past or kind of looking forward. I want to try and be loaded in the future. I want to pay off my mortgage, and people don't tend to live in the present, do they? When
Exactly. We're also conditioned to live in a material realm, you know. And here's the thing. Pleasure can't bring you happiness. Pleasure works in a different part of the brain to well-being. Well-being is your contentedness and your balance, all that, you know. So you wake up and you don't get black dog because you know how to fend that off. Like I'm saying, you're not in victim mode. You are just grateful for whatever. I'm not saying we don't have challenging days, you know. I will say now, folks, the alcohol won't help you. Just fucking won't. You know, that's a big black dog day if you're mucking around with that stuff still. Or, you know, if you got a problem with it, I mean. But, yeah, sorry, mate, I lost thread of what I was saying then, but...
No, it's just like I say about living in the present, but it's the thing is like, obviously you had your awakening, as I'd probably like to call it, where you thought, what the fuck am I doing? You know, like you say, you've been gifted with health, you know, because that is a big thing as well. You know, I think it takes somebody close to you, or there's a story at the minute. It's called Jacob's Story. He's on Instagram. I've been trying to push that, and he's a serving soldier. He's 24 years of age, and he's got less than a 5% chance of surviving because he's got leukemia, a really rare form of leukemia, I believe. And he's going through chemo. He's really weak at the minute. He's trying to raise money for alternative care. And you look at that and think, and you look at his story, you think, I really have nothing to worry about in life. I've got my health. If that's all I've got, is my health, and whether that be mental health or physical health, you know. But obviously people are different, and you were in that mindset and able to give yourself a kick up the arse almost and change your kind of perspective and your outlook on life and turn your life around. Obviously, there are people out there that need to go and kind of talk to healthcare professionals and kind of probably need an intervention of sorts to be able to do that, whichever way you do it. But no, I agree with you totally there. It is. You kind of hear once. It's not a dress rehearsal. And that's easy for me to say because I've been quite open. I have had my ups and downs with mental health, but nothing really kind of serious. So I can't really relate to people that have kind of been down your road, or you know, to other people that have been at the lowest of the low. But it is, and the encouragement I'm trying to push is, as I know you are as well, is it's still the stigma around it has got better. Now, obviously, going back to when you know we're going through these issues that you were having, it wasn't a big thing. It was kind of highly sort of shamed, or it was embarrassing to go and say, "Look, I've got a problem with my mental health. You know, I'm really struggling." And blokes being blokes, again, we don't like to talk. We like to bottle it up and be like, see it as a sign of weakness. And still, even to this day, even though how much it's getting out there, it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. I think there's still 22 veterans that kill themselves or take their own lives a day, which is, you know, it's still a ridiculously high number. But I think it is kind of, yeah, it's a difficult one. We still need to get that message out there that people need to talk and need to be open about their feelings, not to be ashamed of.
People need to talk, Chris, but also it needs to become a thing in the veteran community that if you get caught slagging off another veteran Doesn't matter who they are, what they've done, you get your fucking head ripped off by the rest. Because because of the nature of the community we're in, there's so many damaged people in it.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean that disparagingly or disrespect. I'm just saying, and when you see the way some of them conduct themselves, which is obviously mostly through social media, it's like, for fuck's sake, which unit did you serve with, you fucking idiot? You're on there writing your poison about people that you don't even know. He wasn't 6-para or 3-para or 10. Fuck. You don't know what you fucking the Walter Mitty Hunters Club or something, are you? And what they don't know is that person. Why do you think we got such a high suicide rate? Because this wonderful club, this elite brotherhood that we're all supposed to be a part of, it isn't. There's some bloody good lads in it and lasses, but there's also some real damaged people, and they need to be wound in. They need to be told that attacking veterans during a suicide epidemic is not clever. That's my 10 cents worth, mate, because, I had a mate once, he did a stunt for charity and it went wrong. He went wrong. He got arrested, got all his gear confiscated. Then it became a big thing that the French government were going to sue the British government because he was in France at the time. And Jesus Christ, well, here's the thing. He was just an extrovert bootneck, so Marine, doing what we all did was crazy, stupid, extrovert things. And he was doing it for charity. And he didn't pull this one off. That shit happens, right? I saw Marines online saying stuff about him that was just fucking unacceptable, Chris, I think you don't say that about a brother. You just don't. Who are you? Do you not think before you fucking write stuff? This person could be suicidal. This lad just was really in a bad way after this, Yeah, I think that should be a thing, mate, that don't matter what you think about someone else, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And people are very, very quick to judge people online. It seems to be a thing now. You can just hammer people online without any kind of repercussions. Now, I know I get the bullying online is a prime example of that. And I hear people say, well, just turn the laptop off. But it's not that simple. Or turn your social media off and that. It's not, because social media is a big part of people's life. And people should really sort of think twice. I'm not down with that sort of stuff. You should be supportive of people. And I think I've been guilty in the past, as we probably all have, right in the early days. Now I understand stuff a bit more, was when I'd see people with PTSD or with mental health issues that I knew the sort of period of time that they'd served. And I've said this before on one of the podcasts I had quite recently, and it was, I'd almost judge them and go, well, how have they got PTSD? At the time they served, I know they didn't do anything of any kind of what I call worth, if you like, at the time. And then I thought about it, and now I understand it a bit more, and I've done my own kind of research and stuff. It's perception, isn't it? It's people's perception. What offends you? Not necessarily offends. What kind of triggers you, or kind of is giving you kind of issues? It's not necessarily going to bother me. We're all different. Everyone's perception is different. Everyone's different, and it's about just being a kind of supportive and positive. Spreading a bit of positivity and supporting like-minded individuals and that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole PTSD thing as well. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about. It's been constructed by these psychopathic quote unquote elites to they've turned it against the common person. And what I mean is they've made it a badge of honor through movies like Rambo and Platoon they made the veteran story like, thank you for your service, sir, rather than get the people to question, well, hang on, why was this person sent to Vietnam anyway? Why did that conflict go on for, what was it, like over 10 friggin' years? Who were these arms companies that made, that produced the next batch of billionaires? And what's happened is they've sold PTSD as something you get in combat. Well, yes, of course you can get trauma in combat, but here's the thing. First off, you're an adult. Second, you decided to join up. Third, yeah, you can see some horrible shit, but you got the rationale to make sense of it in your mind. What we're seeing, Chris, and going back to what you're saying, is the real damage, the real PTSD, not for everyone, obviously I can't talk for everyone, but for all these people we look at and go, hang on, he wasn't in combat, so how can he be? It's childhood, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's come from the childhood. It's why we joined up, to prove ourselves, because we was, I don't know, not again, I'm not talking everyone, of course, I don't know everyone, but I deal with traumatized people every single day. I mean, I'm a life coach for a start. And I really have probably met, I could count on one hand how many veterans I've met that were actually traumatized in theatre, so in conflict. The vast majority, mate, it's childhood and they don't understand it. So they couldn't even tell you they've got PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So think about it, right? You're a 2-year-old kid or 3 years old and you get battered to fuck, battered unconscious every time, I don't know, your fucking old man's come back from the pub. And, he is taking his unresolved trauma out on the next generation, isn't it? This is called intergenerational trauma. You're 3 years old, for fuck. You can't make sense of that. You can't make sense of it. You're free. You just know that this thing is going to happen to you any moment now because you see the signs, might be the smell of alcohol, might be that look that a parent gets, and it's coming. And your mind, when they say flight or fight,
yep,
what they forget is freeze. Because as a toddler, you go, and your brain is trying to switch off what is coming next. And you regain consciousness and you're like, oh, that thing happened again, didn't it? I must be doing something wrong because it keeps happening. But I'm 3 years old, 4 years, 5 years, I don't have the mental capacity to understand what's just happened. So therefore I store it right deep down in the deepest part of my faculty, my memory, my thinking. It's there, but I don't know how to deal with it. Then you grow up, you get adult, you still got that entrenched bit of programming that it's not only not been dealt with, but it's almost impossible to get over the effects it causes. Because even in adulthood, you get in a stressful situation, suddenly, like you're freezing. They call it panic attacks, don't they? You're like... And what I'm saying is, when that toddler then becomes homeless and he's on the corner of the street with his bottle of wine, hidden behind his rucksack and his little dog. Got any money, sir? Can you spare some check? How fucking horrible are people to them, Chris,
True.
How condescending and demeaning that, go and get a job. You can go and have a shower. Or, That's the culture we live in. That's not. When there's a veteran walking down the street with his fucking, I don't know, his regiment shirt on, oh, thank you for your service. They become fucking creepy wankers. The same person that's just like belittled the homeless. Well, here's the thing. That homeless person's been through 20 times what you and I went through in the military. You know, the hardship of being a traumatized person and keeping it to, you know, it's addiction. Jesus Christ, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy, mate. Give me the 30 miler any day of the week as opposed to addiction, you know. Give me the endurance course in February rather than being homeless, you know. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is this is how we judge. Whereas the veteran, hang on a sec, he's a happy, healthy, achieving adult that decided to join the military and go abroad to kill other teenagers, right? Do you see the irony here? Yeah. You know, which is the one that gets all the admiration poured on? It's the one that signs up to go and kill other teenagers to make the bankers even richer than they already fucking are, you know? That's the one that gets the respect. The 4-year-old that's battered to fuck that ends up homeless because he this deep down trauma that's so hard to he gets spat on and set fire on the street. This is the madness that we live under. It's this skewed thinking, this skewed hero worship of the military. Thank you for your fuck off. You don't know my service. If you knew my service, you'd know we fucking hated civilians in the Marines. We despised you. We would talk about you like you were shit all day long, right? And you're going, oh, thank you, yeah, you're all heroes. Like, you wouldn't say that if you knew the truth, you know? We have people in the forces you wouldn't want to go on holiday with. You certainly wouldn't send a Christmas card. You had cowards. You had people, I know, in conflict. I saw people ducking down when they should have been getting up and making. I saw it, Chris, you know. All this, like, image that the public have, they just don't know the truth. They don't know the truth. So I'm only saying this, mate. I don't mean to upset people. I just want to say, if you're a veteran out there and you're struggling, I've got your back, brother or sister. Absolutely. I know where you are. You've done nothing wrong. You are massively, massively loved, massively respected. You don't prove yourself to nobody. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you are perfect in every single way. Just get out there, smile, live your life, and make your dreams come true. That's how simple it is. Oh, and knock the drugs and the alcohol on the head, because it's a bit hard to do it when you're doing all that shit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, on that note, Chris, I think we've covered a wide variety of topics there, and I'm just I've really kind of an inspirational story there from start to finish. So thank you very much.
No, mate, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you to you for being such a gracious host and letting me do all the talking, and also just to get a message out there, you know. And that's the message that I just gave, mate. So thank you, and thank your listeners and your viewers very much. Really appreciate it.
No, absolutely, pal. Well, what I'll do is I'll have a chat with you off air in a second, but it has been an absolute pleasure. And thank you very much for sharing. You know, it's not always an easy kind of thing to do, to talk about troubles that people have gone through, but no, absolute pleasure, pal. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, mate. Thank you. Hello, friends. I'm Chris Thrall. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando turned author, adventurer, and podcast host. In 2022, I was awarded English Veteran of the Year for inspiration for my work taking on extreme challenges to raise awareness of the alarming rate of veteran suicide.
And the winner is Chris Thrall.
I've run an ultra marathon a day, the length of the United Kingdom.
A former Royal Marines Commando from Devon has tonight reached Land's End after running all the way from John O'Groats. Chris Thrall has run an ultra marathon every day since the 1st of September.
I've recreated the Royal Marines' legendary 9-mile speed march. And run up to 2 marathons a day in 52 degrees heat across the Sahara Desert.
There are YouTubers and then there are YouTubers. Let's go and meet Chris, who is specialized in extreme adventures.
I always say you get one life. If you live it right, one is enough. But my life wasn't always so fun. After leaving the forces, I ended up homeless and suffering severe mental health challenges. But changing my mindset, I've gone on to achieve all my goals in 85 countries across all 7 continents, and I now dedicate my life to supporting others to achieve theirs. Now I'm taking on my biggest challenge yet. I've put together a crew, all of whom have fought their own personal battles.
I'm Louis Greenhalgh. I'm a former Irish Guardsman, currently recovering from a serious brain trauma, well aware of the issues that our veterans face.
Simon Smith. In 2018, after a mental health crisis, I was diagnosed Asperger. I'm joining Oceans Elite to raise awareness for suicidal veterans and bereaved military children.
And as Team Oceans Elite, we will row across the Atlantic Ocean. Our mission is to shine a light for our fellow veterans who are struggling with their mental health or homelessness or contemplating suicide, and raise vital funds and support for children who've lost a parent in conflict or taken their own life. Please support us by joining our social media and sharing all our posts, and if you can, please spare a $5 for our GoFundMe. You'll find all the links below this video. Thank you, friends. Much love.
The Veterans Channel.
I guess I'm one of these people that likes running. It's always really kept me on the straight and narrow.
In October 2018, former British Royal Marine Chris Thrall set out to run 999 miles across the United Kingdom.
I want to raise awareness of this alarming rate of suicide we've got amongst our veterans at the moment. If I have to crawl an ultramarathon a day, that's what I will do. I wanted to put the message out there to veterans who are struggling as I had, that there's always a light. So long as you look within, you dig deep, change maybe a few of your paradigms, be prepared to change, you can achieve anything.
Yeah, so good.